Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Tuesday, September 2025. We're going out of the matrix into prime reality. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube in a live chat. Our wonderful moderators, Raymond, two steps behind. Ronnie, I think, is on her way. And of course, Christine, my wonderful wife, as the wise thumbs in the live chat. All right, my friends, I'm going to share something today that I haven't shared before, ever actually. A vision. And actually, it's more than one, but I'm going to start with the main one. And it happened in early 2020. So I'm going to dive right into it. I was going out for a run, and this is when we started getting reports from, the China reports. And there was something eerily different because in the years prior to 2020, you might remember there were multiple outbreaks, Ebola and whatnot. And so this event had tried to happen before, it just didn't. But then when things started coming out of China and we started getting these messages from our friends from all over the world, it became clear that something was unfolding. And interestingly enough, and I have to preface this just a little bit, the way that our lives had shifted in the year prior to 2020 was actually unbelievably crazy, as if we were completely prepared for what was about to come. And then early 2020, I want to say March or something like that, maybe even late February, I'm going out for a run through the woods. And it was astonishing because it was like as though from the very first minutes of the run, as though I had gone into a trance. And through the entire run, I kept getting these visions and downloads and visions and downloads. And the first one that I got was that this entire decade, 2020 to 2030, was going to be a decade of intense work for us. And I remember coming back later and talking to Christine about it and saying, we got our work cut out for us for the next 10 years, right? So for the next 10 years, we'll be very, very intensely working. It'll be required of us. We'll be in this fully. That was the first thing I got. And then during that same run, very quickly, I got images of warfare. Um, both don't want to say just physical warfare. It was a clarity that war was about to be waged on all of us at different levels. So I saw some kinetic warfare, which of course is always happening somewhere in the world, but I saw some of that. I even saw sort of kinetic situations in Europe, in America. I didn't see all out war. I just saw kind of war-like scenarios, lots of people with guns and people being ready and whatnot. And that almost immediately came to fruition in the summer of love, if you will, when we saw in smaller suburbs in town, ours, when the BLM protests, the George Soros funded games started to happen in America, and there was a lot of rioting, looting, destruction, violence, and whatnot. Towns like ours, when it was announced that they were going to come to a town like ours, is fairly small town in Tennessee. Everybody boarded up and loaded up, and entire Main Street was just everybody with guns and ready to just protect. Nothing happened, but that kind of came to fruition very quickly. And so what I remember distinctly was that when I was on this run, which is about a 45-minute run, I remember there was a profound sadness and a profound excitement. The sadness was because I felt that the spiritual progress, if you will, the spiritual awakening progress that so many people had gone through was about to be disrupted heavily. And that our work, many people who are really deeply in just spiritual development work, if you will, that our work was going to become much more real world. It's going to become much more information news style. That was a sadness there, but I felt that with this wave that was coming, a lot of people needed to present information in a balanced way and show what is really going on. But at the same time, there was also an excitement I also remember that a couple days later, Christina and I went on a walk, and we were incredibly excited, even though the world was getting very scared. We were incredibly excited for what was about to unfold, because it was something we'd been working on and maybe waiting for, if you will, for many, many years. And now it was here, and it was very exciting. During that same run, back to the run, the vision run, um, what was clear was that if we hadn't done it yet, and some we had done some of that, but some we hadn't, we really needed to become more self-reliant, self-sufficient, and that starts with our thinking, right? And really examine all our processes. Where do we fully rely on external structures? And so that was one big thing that came through. Like, now is the time. It's not too late, but now is the time to really set that in motion. Then during that same run, believe it or not, I saw the zombification. And at that point, I couldn't really. It was hard for me to grasp how. I just saw the zombification of people. Um, I saw sort of very inhumane, very unusual behavior patterns. And that one was such a question mark for me, because it's not that I was questioning the vision that I was getting. I was questioning the how. Of course, very quickly, the how was answered, because we knew those things were coming. We just didn't know all the intentions behind them. The main one that we always knew, back 10, 15 years ago, was Depop. That was the main one, is really to reduce how many humans are here. But then the zombification part started to fill in, and that really, I think we're starting to see more and more. But that's really going to happen in the what I call the turning five. So these 5 years, 2025 to 2030, these are the turning 5 years. And I'm going to get to that. Uh, so we saw that. I saw that. And then in that same vision, I saw what we discussed so many times later, a complete split that was going to go through society, like let's say you would take an axe and just run it through wood, and it would just a clean split, and it isn't as clean yet, but that's what it felt like. That's what I saw. And basically, I sensed that anyone who wasn't willing to now embrace the truth, at least give it their best shot, was simply going to start to fall away. And I can't explain to you what that means. I just saw them fall away. They were not going to be able to follow along, because everything was going to go so fast. And it was the strangest feeling throughout this entire run. There was a mix of excitement, but also weariness. It was like, okay, so there's a lot that needs to change here. Then there was this whole part of our lives being really turned upside down, from what we were doing before, what we were focusing on before, to this work here. And I knew 10 years, that's the bare minimum, right? Because it's going to be 2030 is this pivotal year. I'm not saying the world ends there, or it's not going to continue to change, but the first 5 years of this decade were truly about information warfare, if you will. And you just had to pick your spot where you were going to sit, or act, or be, or do, and then do what you can with what you have where you are. Specifically, 2020 through 2023, incredible information warfare. Unlike anything we've seen, compressed, strong psychological warfare. Of course, the tools have improved so much, AI and whatnot. Um, and up until, I would say, probably earlier this year, that energy started to phase out. And this is where I get into the vision of the turning five. And that really came through a few dreams. So I'm going to start with the first intense dream. And that's sort of a triggering one, if you will. That was a zombification. So that was another vision dream. And I'm going to just share them all with you that I had in the last years, because I hadn't done it before. In that dream, and that was a reoccurring one, but the first one was the most intense one. I saw a hill, and I saw zombie like people descending from that hill, towards me. and it was one of those very clear, real things. So you know what a premonition is, you know what a vision is versus just a dream. That wasn't just a dream. That hill has since appeared in my real life. That hill that I saw has appeared in my real life. So that's interesting for me to see. And that same vision occurred multiple times, and I had my conclusions about what that is. Now, when it comes to the zombification, and this is me interpreting it, this is not what I saw in a vision. This is going to be not exclusively, but this is going to be really most prevalent in around big urban areas, in and around big urban areas. And it is because of in big urban areas, there's a higher concentration of the population that has gone through multiple medical procedures, and they're exposed to the highest concentration of EMFs. And we now all but know for a fact, we know very clearly that there is a constant interaction between um, frequencies, between these new technologies that are out there, so to speak, and what is happening inside our bodies. And it appears to affect those who have gone through these procedures at an exponential rate. So that, and not everyone, by the way. There were different kinds of procedures, but there's a certain section of the population that I believe can now be pretty much remote controlled when and if wanted and needed. Like that's not part of the vision. That's part of my interpretation of it. But the vision showed me 3 or 4 dreams. In 3 or 4 dreams, this zombification. Another one that I saw um, was a dream where we were a premonition, a vision dream. And like I say, I really distinctly distinguish between regular dreams and those kinds of dreams. I only had about 10, maybe 15 of those premonition dreams in my life. And most of them happened in the last few years. So the other one was sort of a summer, maybe early fall celebration in a field. Um, there were many people picnic style sitting on blankets. There was clearly an attention to the sky, which leads me to believe it might have been something like 4th of July. It might be the big 4th of July celebration next year, 2026, the big America 250-year celebration. Um, it might be. I'm not saying it is. It might be. But we were all in the field. It was dark. We were kind of looking at the sky. People were eating, and it was joyous. And all of a sudden, ships appeared, and sort of laser beams were shooting down from the ships. Uh, I immediately, in this dream, in this vision, immediately I knew this was a blue beam kind of fake. It was a fake thing. It looked like an alien ship, but I knew it was staged. I had this clear knowing. But people started pulling out their guns. This is America, so you can just expect that people are going to be armed at those kinds of deals. And people started shooting at it. And I tried to just warn people and say, stop doing that. Stop doing it. This is fake. It's not real. But there was no getting through. So we basically just, all we could do is really run from the scene because it was getting dangerous with everybody shooting. So I saw that. And then the turning five, what I call the turning five, the years 2025 to 2030, there's a shift in energy. And the visions that I've been getting in the last year are always the same thing. They're completely different than the ones I had before. Even though I believe that some of those earlier visions from this decade are still to unfold, but the visions that I've been getting in the last year were completely different and always the same. And they're all about you who are watching. And I want to say our core audience, but sometimes our core audience can be somebody new who's just discovering us here. And this is about, I've been seeing you thrive. And I have been sharing. This is the only one that I have been sharing. I've been seeing you all thrive sort of as in a way that I cannot explain. So it's as though many of you all of you, I don't know the number, are becoming the truly the best possible version of you on all levels. So I see you thrive on all levels, physically, spiritually, mentally, in health, in abundance, in money, in all areas. Like it's like you are becoming the most positively influential group on earth. Now that might not happen in a way that you're going to be like out on the screens or very well known, doesn't matter, but all the, everything that will be available to you both inward and outwardly is going to help you to be incredibly positively influential. At the same time this vision this the at the same time this vision shows me that the greatest challenge, and has shown me, like this one I've seen over and over again, I can't even tell you how many times. The greatest challenge will be to thrive beyond your current wildest imagination while all the turmoil is still unfolding. That has been like over and over and over again. I get the same thing. And I started to share, but not enough probably. So this is completely illogical to me because I don't know how, right? I have no idea how, but I've been seeing you thrive. And if you're watching this and you get this like this feeling in the pit of your stomach, you know how it feels when you hear something that rings true, even though you can't explain it. That's it. And and I've been sort of trying to figure out how we can assist you in this thriving, right? And I'm learning that unless it's a really clear idea that comes through, I can't force this, right? So it is my intention to help where I can, assist with, so that Christine and I can assist, but I also know that it has to be like fully inspired, like guided, not something that we just create. So when that comes through, we'll let you know. But this is the biggest one. And in new AG Galactic Federation speak, you might call this, and I don't, you guys know that's not me, but you might call this the light worker activation, whatever you want to call it. But it is incredibly important, imperative that many of you thrive, like really thrive. It's interesting because a lot of you've had a difficult life, like, everything from challenging childhoods to challenging adulthoods, health challenges, financial, you name it. I know a lot of you've had that. And I'm not saying that this will just magically change on its own, but that if you shift now, if you're willing to accept this as um your new lived reality, that the potential is incredible right now. The window is opening, what I call the energy window. And those energy windows, they're not always open. When they open, everything's a little easier. Everything happens a little faster. It's just like the stars align, if you will. The window is opening now. 2025 was the shift. We're shifting from that information age energy into truly transformation energy. So the next 4 years and change are all about us living, living and exuding and sharing the best of the best of the best, excellence on all levels. No more playing it small, no more um settling for the bare minimum in all levels, like especially who we are, you know um more joyous, happier, but not forced, in a real authentic way, honest and truthful in everything that we say. And if we can't say it, we will shut up. Like nobody will pretend anymore. We'd rather be quiet than share some half truth. Our actions are all infused with love, and we will not have to collectively, this group, whatever, I can't really define it, that's just what I'm getting. We will not have to struggle so much anymore. But it is a choice. Like you have to step into it. It can't just, it will not happen to you. It will happen through you. So you have to play your part in it. And this is the deciding factor. This is why I call it the turning five, 2025 to 2030, the turning 5 years. What we do now And what will happen in those 5 years, generally speaking, will determine how the next 100 years unfold or so. So this is what happens until 2030 will probably define this entire rest of the century. This is how strongly I felt this for a very, very long time. And the thing is, I do not see 2031 yet. And I don't know why. I think because it's not written yet, right? It's not clear yet. There's the potential for 2031 seems to be still very, very open. Everything until 2030 is very cramped. The potential for 2031 is very open. So that means we have our work cut out for us. But it is imperative that you become the best possible version of you now. That needs to be the main focus. Um, Another thing that I've seen over and over again is we have to deal with grief and trauma as it comes immediately. So our default mode as humans, because um, we were sort of put into a box where we need to function in a certain way, the 9 to 5 way that the world wants. And this is dying. This model is clearly dying. It's still going to be here, but not for much longer. So what is important is that there will be a lot of things to grieve, and there will be a lot of trauma that we still see, and that might even happen around us. And we will have to use all these tools and ceremonies and prayers and meditations and practices that we're remembering to deal with the trauma right away, so it doesn't turn into, long-term trauma, pain, suffering, illness. No more putting it away for later. It's dealing with it now, allowing it, feeling it, releasing it. That's incredibly important. Otherwise, you won't be able to function in the way that you want to. Uh, Also, past trauma healing is going to become, I want to say, I see the year 2027 for that. That's going to become the most sought after modality, trauma healing. People are going to figure out that no matter where technology goes and they think med beds and all this is the solution, they're always going to arrive at the point where they need to deal with their shit from the past that they haven't dealt with. There's no machine that can do that. And that's going to become the most important modality. So if people are inclined, if you are a trauma healer, if you've learned these modalities, uh business is going to be booming, friends. And it's just how it's going to be. From 2027 onward, for the rest of the decade and probably beyond, that's going to be huge, and people are going to understand how important it is. um and yeah, that's pretty much the important part of these visions that I've had. Now, the warfare part, I'm going back to the first run vision that I had. The warfare part is interesting because it has softened. We've gone through 2020. There was that warlike atmosphere in the air in that summer, and we've gone through multiple threats since. Of course, if you're in the Ukraine, if you're in Russia, Ukraine, if you're in those areas, then this is a reality for you. If you're in Gaza, if you're in Israel, and that's a reality for you. Um, I'm not diminishing that in any way, shape, or form, but as a overall theme, like the World War theme, even though what's coming out of Europe is a big push for war, and even though the European politicians have their heads so far up their asses, it's not even funny. Um, you know, it's incredible. And here too, I'm just saying, when it comes to war right now, they're pushing for it because these spiritual toddlers believe that that's the only way out of the incredible mess that the whole continent is in. But even though that is happening, and even though they're pushing, that seems to be softening. And maybe we've seen the worst of it. I don't know, but it could be. I'm not aligned with all the other projections I see on that right now, but that's just intuitively. So that's sort of a good signal that I have. But really, the core message here is nothing is going to just happen to you. These are strong potentials. these are things that I see very clearly, but everybody has to make a choice. You have to choose that. You have to choose it with all your heart, with all your being. And then what that means is you automatically say no to everything that's not that. So you can live, there's no more half-assedness, right? There was this, and I forget, it might have been Chief Seattle, but I'm not sure, who talked to one of the, either was a general, maybe, I don't know. It was somebody high up in the United States government, and they had a sit down and a powwow, and they talked. And if it was Chief Seattle, he said, right now, many of my people are living in two canoes. He said they have one foot in the canoe of our old ways and one foot in the canoe of your ways, of the white man's ways. And that won't be good for long. They will have to choose a canoe. And this is where we're at too. We have to choose the canoe that we're going to be in. And if we choose wholeheartedly, that means saying no to everything else. It also means leaving people, circumstances, stories, belief systems, everything else behind, and quite rapidly at that. So it's a completely different situation than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. This is the pivotal moment. This is where you either you jump or you don't. Um, and the technological, so the way that the world's going, and I'm talking just the mainstream, the big tech apparatus, mainstream economy, politics, governance, all of that, the rapid transformation, it'll be like a machine gun fire for the next years. So you won't be able to even believe how fast this goes. But if we create and continue to create our parallel reality bubbles, if you will, we'll be quite shielded, as good as it can be. And more people will just come over, feeling this is the right path. So this is it. This is what I've been seeing for this decade. I've never shared that I had this vision or these visions and dreams. And the two really important ones that led to all of this, believe it or not, like I said, preparation, and that's how I'm going to end the show today, is April of 2019. um I came out of a meditation. That one I've shared. I came out of a meditation. It was 4 a.m. or something, very early, and I came out and I heard these words: start a YouTube channel, call it Inspired. I had no intention for this. So this just came, and I did it, registered the channel, got started, told Christine about it a few days later. She was on board. We both didn't know where this was going. And then about a year later, Christine came out of a meditation, and she said, we have to start doing daily live shows. People are scared. People are confused. People don't know what's happening. They're losing touch with their families. They're isolated. They need a space where they can gather. And we started doing that. And I believe for a year, more than a year, we did daily, every day, live shows. And it started small, 30 people showed up, 40 people showed up, whatever. It wasn't about the number, it was about the energy. And that's how it all started. So here we are. It's September of 2025, and absolutely nothing is impossible, my friends. So we still have to remember that. And we have to remember that there is only one conspiracy out there. People think there's 1,000 conspiracies or 1,000,000 conspiracies. There's only one. All of the things, all of the crazy rabbit holes that you go down to, everything that is happening in the world of manipulation, deception, lies, cheating, stealing, killing, everything is one singular conspiracy. And that is to hide you from you. That's the only thing that's going on here. All that they're trying to do is to hide you from you. And the thing is, there's what that means. wasn't ever described in a single book, wasn't ever described by a single teacher. There's no one out there who ever correctly described what that really means, because it cannot be described. Nobody can write in a book what it means to hide you from you. Nobody can describe what it means when you discover who you really are, because it can't be described. It can't be written down. There are no words to describe it. It doesn't matter how good of a speaker writer you are. You'll never get what that truly means until you turn inwards, until you really go and you start wondering what's happening in your spine. Boy, there's something going on here. What's happening in the center of your head? Oh, there's something going on there. Oh, there's a big light explosion in my head. Something's going on. And this is as far as you can describe these things. Knowing it means nothing. It's like, it's just another fact. But experiencing it, that's what it really means. So, and this is what all these conspiracies are about, to keep you from discovering you. That's it. Because once you do, you're uncontrollable. You're forever lost to the cause. Forever. You'll never, ever be controllable again. Because once you go there and you feel it and you know it and you've seen it for yourself, you've experienced it, there's nothing, absolutely nothing that could ever get you to the point where you play small again. And that's what the singular conspiracy is about, hiding you from you. So if there's one thing that needs to be done, is to go inward and figure out what that means, discover it. Do what you need to. I'm not saying drugs or shrooms or any of that. You don't need that. You need deep breath. You need focus. You need concentration. You need intention. You need discipline. That's what you need. I can't help it, but that's what is required. But when and if you do, you'll never be hidden from yourself again. And I think that's where the thriving starts. All right, my friends. By the way, if for people who need assistance, guidance, who feel like it could be beneficial to them to get some guidance on that, the After Awakening retreat that we did last month or so was recorded. It's available on demand. If that speaks to you, this is definitely going to put you on track. It's called afterawakeningretreat.com. That's where you can find all the info if you're interested.
And please tell people that Rob and Thomas and Two Steps Behind are organizing Zoom calls every
Yes.
So people are saying that they're alone. They don't know why they're not joining.
So Christine just said that a lot of people are saying they feel alone or lonely or isolated. That was what really sparked this. This is what really sparked the retreat. We wanted to show people how not alone they are. And you will see it for those who attended. They've experienced what that means, because we've gone so deep into the experience that it was abundantly clear. Again, afterawakeningretreat.com. But then there's also a few of our wonderful tribe members on Locals, in the Inspired community on Locals, Thomas and Rob and Raymond, aka Two Steps Behind, who are organizing a weekly Zoom call for anyone who wants to join. And you can find all the info. They're posting it all in the Inspired community on Locals at inspired.locals.com. Join us there. The journey is getting bigger there, and we're sharing more also about the new farm life here and all of that, and the animals, the goats, the chickens, the journey. So it's a good place to be if you feel inspired to join us. All right, friends, thank you again. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon. Are you looking for like-minded and like-hearted people to connect with? Then the Inspired community on Locals is the right place for you. You can post, comment, share, and connect with others, and our shows there are completely uncensored and unfiltered. It's stuff we can't talk about here. It's such a great community, and there are 0 trolls. We keep the subscription fees super low, so 19 cents per day. Keep the trolls away. Join us today at inspired.locals.com. We can't wait to see you there.